So, guys, welcome to another episode of the How They Did It podcast. And I am here with, and I'm did not make this name up, so don't guys come at me. DJ, Coach DJ Vanilla Face. I call her Coach DJ. I started following her super recently. She actually talked about a subject, and this is gonna be the first thing I'm gonna bring up. But she talked about a subject I'm super interested in because I have a client that is currently going through this, which is post psychotherapy. And I saw one video of hers, and it was kind of actually contradicting to what our concierge doctor was talking to us about. And yeah, so I'm super duper excited to talk to her. She's super knowledgeable. And one of the best things I get out of this podcast, I get to speak to people that are much smarter than me, which the bar is pretty low there. But anyhow, it's at least I get to speak to people that are much smarter. And now I'm shooting. I'm punching way above my weight class. So thank you very much for coming to the podcast. I'm super excited to speak with you.
Thank you for having me. So is that where we're kicking off? Is post psychotherapy then?
Yeah, post psychotherapy. I'm going to give you a little context here, and I'm curious on your opinion of it. So I have a client. He was on testosterone replacement therapy for about like 2 years. I wouldn't even really call it testosterone replacement therapy. Realistically, you might want to call it like testosterone optimization therapy. He didn't have any kind of he wasn't like have any kind of issues with his testosterone. He was on the lower end of
Hmm.
the normal ranges. The concierge doctor was very happy to bring him up, and then we switched concierge doctors kind of midway through, and then he was like, if you really want to put on muscle, and he kind of had these very ambitious goals in very short time frames, he picked up that testosterone dose to about 500 milligrams per week. He did it
That's a
for about
cool
6
doctor.
months. Very cool. Not messing around. And he basically went up to 500 milligrams. He liked it, and then he was like kind of like, I want to get off. I want to see how I feel off of it completely, because I've been on for 2 years now that I did this big dose and all that, and I don't have much experience with this, so I've really relied heavily on what the doctor was telling me. And his advice was, we're going to get off, start uh, CJC, sorry, HCG, and then go for clomiphene afterwards. And it kind of like within 2 weeks of stopping. And then I saw your video that you were talking about it, and I was like, I'm curious. I'm like, why didn't I let why maybe we should let the esters kind of completely go out and see where he's at before we start going. I also was worried about starting HCG right away because I was like, well, if his estrogen levels go up, if we're getting
Estrogen,
like,
yes.
yeah,
That's the big
I was
one.
like, that's the one I think a lot of people are worried about. And I was like, well, isn't that something we should be worrying about? And that kind of got me thinking. And I was like, okay, great. Now I have you here, and I'm going to let you go on from here. Tell me what you think about this kind of situation.
Post psychotherapy is medically irrelevant. We can say that with certainty based on empirical data. That is not really up for a debate. It does, challenge what we see in conventional bodybuilding and those guys that are running cycles. And I do think that it makes people feel a lot better. I'm all about a good placebo effect, right? But we also want to look at practical application and use. So when you take testosterone, or any exogenous hormone, it's going to be suppressive. Your guy was running it a while, he upped it to 500. He's not producing any of his own. And assuming he was on a longer ester, let's say like a cypionate or a nanthate, it's going to be in his
Yeah.
system a while. We look at maybe 5 half-lives. We're looking at 5 to 6 weeks. Roughly, we're down to 3% systemic circulation, let's say. But as long as there's circulation, we're still giving your body feedback that there's testosterone present. So, the way I like to describe the HPG axis, hypothalamus pituitary gonadal axis, so everything is connected. This is also what makes our bodies really annoying and difficult to run cycles, and this is where all the complexities come in. So, I describe it as a circle. And you have a circle, which is a series of arcs. And the second you move or you change the trajectory of one of those arcs, you now have a spiral. Your circle's gone. That's our bodies in terms of hormones. So you've introduced the suppressive compound. You've disrupted this feedback loop essentially, and now you're telling your body you're getting it from an outside source. So when you get off of the compound, if we start post cycle therapy, which is the goal is to get your body to increase its own production, we are returning to endogenous production. It's not going to do that so long as there is an outside source of testosterone coming into play. That's why we have to wait for systemic clearance. Now, it's not that PCT is completely worthless. Some people will like it. It helps get their erections back on track. Maybe they're dealing with some ED issues, libido issues, because your testosterone's tanked. At the end of the day, you have high test and then you have low test, and it's going to zero out at some point. It's got to clear your system. But you can't signal to your pituitary that it needs to increase. Like a lot of people like to use enclomiphene because it has less estrogenic effects than the parent drug Clomid with dual stereoisomers. They use enclomiphene, but you can't really block estrogen receptors to cue increase in gonadotropins if you still have exogenous hormones in your body. HCG is super cool and can make you feel good, but with long-term use, it's suppressive in itself. It's not increasing anything, it's mimicking luteinizing hormone. So you got to let all the esters clear before you begin PCT. And even then, PCT would probably be more about getting erections back on track and potentially mental health. But you're through the worst of it at that point. The shittiest you're going to feel is going to be 5 weeks. So you're already through the worst of it. And I think the issue is a lot of guys will go get their labs done 6-7 weeks post cycle, see that their hormones are in the tank and say, well, this is it. I'm on testosterone for the rest of my life. I did one cycle, ruined it. No, man, if you just waited a little bit longer, your levels would have come back up. And again, the clinical data shows that if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you were not hypogonadal with some type of endocrine dysfunction to begin with, your body's going to resume normal functions once you remove the exogenous source.
So when we're talking that you're going to be you get back to your normal levels, what's the chances for, say, someone that is doing TRT for 2+ years and maybe even potentially super physiological dosage of testosterone? What's the chances we do have more permanent damage to our system at that point, and maybe we won't be getting back? Is that something that we're seeing regularly from people that are getting off of
I would say
testosterone?
probably the opposite in a lot of cases, given lifestyle changes. Now, obviously, there's very suppressive and extreme compounds that can be more suppressive and have the potential for more long term damage. But at the end of the day, it's the suppression that we're concerned about. So the average man gets on testosterone. Maybe he's suboptimal, maybe he's truly hypogonadal. Most guys don't just get on test and hang out on test. They're going to have more energy. You have more energy, you're going to move more. Daily energy expenditure goes up. You lean out a little bit. Well, now you're motivated, so maybe you start watching what you eat. Maybe you get to the gym. Maybe you're like, I'm going to abuse this a little bit, get with the shady telehealth clinic, and really get my levels up. Typically, the lifestyle changes that we see in conjunction with getting on testosterone, whether it be optimization, medical necessity, or running a cycle, those lifestyle changes are what would have impacted their natural testosterone levels to begin with. So, what I see, especially with young guys, they might abuse drugs for a few years, they might run cycles, they might stay on test. When they do finally get back, their starting baseline might have been 350, 450 nanograms per deciliter. Once they're fully recovered, we frequently see levels over 600 nanograms per deciliter because they've now improved micronutrients, macronutrient splits, they have more muscle, reduced body fat, so the levels actually look a lot better. We're optimizing omega intake, vitamin D. I see the opposite.
When do you see there being more permanent damage? Is it just a matter of chance, or is it when people are taking larger, very large super physiological doses, like I don't even know, like 1,000 milligrams a week, say?
Really dependent on their baseline labs. If we're already seeing issues that are indicating that they're close to or on borderline hypogonadal, that's almost always where we're going to see issues with recovery because it's going to further suppress. And we don't know if it's primary or secondary. A lot of guys don't go see an endocrinologist and get that extended evaluation. They just know they're low or maybe they're suboptimal and then they're forced to go to a clinic because their primary care won't give them a referral. But typically when we're starting out in a poor range is when recovery is really going to be an issue. And I mean, we've got guys that get their wives pregnant and prep. We run fertility protocols without ever coming off of test. We have people that have abused compounds for decades and are able to come back and resume normal levels. It's actually shocking when you look at the data, but it really depends on those baseline labs. And that's why I always encourage people to get their blood work done before they get on compounds. Everybody says, well, I'm symptomatic of low test, and that's kind of the key social media thing right now. Are you symptomatic of low testosterone? Are you just tired, fatigued? Nobody addresses the fact that they're not sleeping, they eat like crap, they're drinking
Yeah.
alcohol every night. They're going to blame it on low test to sell you TRT, but a lot of times it's just a lifestyle choice. So we have to look at the beginning levels to kind of have an adequate gauge of what recovery has the potential to look like.
Yeah, I have a like most of my experience with clients that decide that they do want to go on testosterone, whether that be for therapy optimization or get on super physiological doses just for fun. Then my first thing is like I really think that you should have a few things dialed in. One, have a really good reason of why you want to do it, because I think a lot of people think that they're going to get on testosterone and then they're going to be like, it's going to be a miracle drug. Like I'm going to take testosterone now, I don't have to go to the gym, I can still eat my cheeseburgers regularly, and I'm going to look great.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're so disappointed when it doesn't happen. They're like, I've basically shut down my my natural production for no reason, and because you haven't really built any of these habits beforehand. I do think sometimes when people are do get on testosterone, just the mental change and like how your dopamine receptors are resensitized, you just want to go work out more. And people I've seen that do get on it, they're generally more motivated, they're more excited to go to the gym and so on and so forth. But I have seen the opposite too, where they think it's going to be the one-stop solution for everything, and then it's not, and then there's like a level of disappointment that they're like, oh. So I really try to tell them like, this is still everything that you're supposed to be doing beforehand, you got to keep doing now, except the results are going to be even better, and you might feel more motivated, and there'd be some psychological benefits as well.
I think the number one question that I get asked, like when I do live streams, is I got on TRT, haven't lost any weight. Thoughts? I'm like, well, are you eating in a calorie deficit? Like, it's not Ozempic, man. Like, what did you
Yeah,
think was going to happen when you started tests? And
yeah,
unfortunately, again, this is something that we have clinical data to back. I've done a lot of videos on this, but when we look at testosterone administration, especially in more aggressive dosages, even low superphysiological ranges, with no lifestyle changes, we're still going to see an increase in muscle mass and a reduction in adipose tissue to some degree. It's not going to be notable.
yeah.
So then a lot of people get on and they're upset because the scale doesn't change or it increases. That's normally what we see. But they're also not paying attention that their delts are a little rounder, upper chest has come up, waist
Mhm.
is coming in. They don't notice those effects because, again, if you're not bodybuilding or working with a coach, how many of us are standing in the mirror half naked taking pictures every day?
Oh, that's not a normal thing to do. Oh,
I mean, it is in my household, but
I thought you left me in the cold over there. No, I had it's funny. I had an experience with it personally. So I never really had any want to get on testosterone. I was a professional fighter for many, many years. I fought in the UFC, and I was obese as a kid. So struggled with weight issues my whole life. And at some point, one of my clients was like, listen, I want to get on TRT. My brother's getting on. I want to get on this and that. And I was like, this isn't my world. I don't know about this. I know many guys. I've trained plenty of guys who are on testosterone, but I don't know everything about this. I'm happy to go there with you, talk with doctors and so on and so forth. And he's like, I want you to do it with me. I'm scared to do it by myself. I want somebody to do it with me. Like, I'll pay for you to do it. And I'm like, I don't really want to do it that much. I'm like, I'll go with you.
that's a
Don't worry about
wild thing. I don't want to do this alone. I'll pay for it. Do it with me.
it. Yeah, yeah. I have crazy clients. I have crazy clients. And so I was like, okay, fine. So I went and I take the blood test, and my testosterone came out low. I think I was my first time 274. Uh, and he was like, he thought that the part of the problem was one, yo-yo dieting for many, many years, from being obese and fighting, and damage to from concussion, from
Mm-hmm.
traumatic brain injuries. And he's like, I actually think that you would really benefit from doing this. And I was like, you know what? You want me to come along with you? Maybe it'll benefit. I'll try it out. And in the beginning, to be honest, I didn't make much changes to my lifestyle. I was already pretty good shape. I trained quite frequently, but I wasn't like, oh, this is like some amazing. Um, it wasn't like the miracle drug, you know. And I was living life normally, and it wasn't until I was like, okay, I went to the gym and I started lifting, and I was like, I saw like I got a pump. I was like, did I get bigger? I barely done anything different. Like, am I really getting that much bigger? I was like, oh crap, I need to really use this. This is playing out. This is pretty cool. Like, this is pretty cool. I'm like, I never gained this much muscle this fast in my life, and then I just got kind of into it. I mean, I'm still at a very much a TRT dose. I only take about 100 milligrams per week of
Where does that
cypionate.
get your levels approximately?
So my last blood test I took actually a couple days ago, I was 924.
Hey, so on only 100, that's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, I think I metabolized it well. I'm on cypionate. I've been taking cypionate because that's what most of them prescribed, but I've been looking to get my hands on enanthate for my next cycle through. So I'm very excited to try because I just been reading a lot about it. I've had some great guests on the podcast, including Dr. Dean St. Mart
Mhm.
and Big Paul Barnett, and they both recommended that. So I'm gonna give it a
Will
shot.
you be able to get that through your current provider?
Yes, I
Okay.
the one good thing is with all my clientele across the world, I generally travel with my clients wherever they go in the world. So I'll work with somebody as a traveling trainer, and I'll be with them like 300 days a year. So they're
Oh,
normally
wow.
very high net worth individuals, and so I get contacts with like places. I travel to like at least a different country every 2 weeks.
Where are you now?
I'm in Athens, Greece at the moment.
That's on my. I told my husband I said I want to go to Greece this summer. That's what we have to do as soon as we get our move taken over or taken care of.
You guys got to come. It's a great place. Where do you want to go in Greece?
I don't care as long as I have like a sea view. That's really all I want. I'm a
Uh,
sucker for those TikTok. I got suckered into travel TikTok, and I've got a list of like resorts that I want to go to, and I want to do just like a mom and dad vacation. That's all I want to do.
it's awesome. Greece is a great place. You should do like a day in Athens and go do a couple days in Crete and maybe go do a couple days in another island.
That's
It's
what everybody said
perfect.
was to travel. They said don't stick with one place. Get the traveling done while you're there.
It's worth it because you're going to come out here and there's so many beautiful, cool places and they're very different. So like you might get like you go to Santorini for the views from the and see the volcano. You can go to like the beaches in Crete with the food, and in Athens you have all the history and the food as well. Actually, it's just an easy place to get fat. It's a great place to get.
That's a place I need to go.
Um, so I'm gonna ask something else. So I basically, because I also work with people that are taking testosterone, and a lot of my clients, especially online clients, started taking GLP-1s recently. So I started working with them, and I found a bit of an issue early on with GLP-1s. The biggest issue I found was a lot of my clients did not make lifestyle changes. Originally, when we started doing GLP-1s, because they felt as if I'm losing the weight. This is successful. This was the main goal was to get that number on the scale to go down. It's ticking that mental checkbox in my head. And then, 3 months into their protocol, they're feeling like, man, I'm a bit weaker. I don't look as good as I thought I was gonna look. And we have to kind of go backwards and make sure they get their
Yep.
protein, micronutrients, and so on and so forth. I wanted to ask you, one, been your experience, if you've used it or if you've had clients use it, what's your experience with it, and if there's any recommendations you have for people taking them.
So people, you're gonna get a lot of hate when I say this. If you don't have a medical necessity, it's a performance enhancing drug. It's on the
Yeah.
watch list for World Anti-Doping Agency. NCAA has already banned it. Every natural bodybuilding federation has banned it. It's a performance enhancing drug. If you are not diabetic and obese and you don't need urgent fat loss, you're taking a PED. And just because it's not a steroid, you're not getting jacked. You're changing your body. So it's going to offer you some type of support or advantage that you don't naturally have. And to me, and people think I say that just to be controversial, like I'm picking on them or bullying them. Like, clearly, I like PEDs. There's no
I
bullying
know.
here. But I think it's very important to clarify because it does change the approach that you take. Just like with testosterone, people get mad when I'm like, no, man, it's not TRT, you're just running test. Well, yeah, that does make a difference because typical TRT, we're not having to look at estradiol management and supportive supplements and ARBs. Like that's a totally different ballgame. So part of this is a safety aspect, and we dose them differently. I like GLPs. I thought tirzepatide, semaglutide, total trash. Never had any interest in it. My company actually refused to work with clients for years on GLPs only if they were transitioning off. Now we have a GLP support program, and I ran Retta. And everyone looks at me, they're like, you're 95 pounds and 4'11. Why did you run Retta? Well, when your girl takes other compounds, I get hungry. So I
Yeah.
microdosed it, not even for fat loss, but just to keep me from eating in a caloric deficit. So I'd like stop making charcuterie boards at midnight. I had a wonderful experience microdosing it. I think GLPs are game changers for enhanced athletes, general population, those with medical necessity, if they are given the right tools. So we work with a lot of providers where we offer registered dietitian services because they will not prescribe a GLP to a patient unless they're working with a dietitian. That's part of what we do because the lifestyle choices aren't there. And honestly, it's a lot of the people that are utilizing them have had a hard time losing fat, regardless of the reason. It's difficult. So when you can see 4 or 5 pounds come off in a week, that's not something that I can really relate to. I would be like, oh my gosh, my muscle, my butt's gonna melt off. But in their case, somebody that struggled with weight lifelong, there couldn't be a better option for them. So they're not looking at the long term repercussions of muscle loss and bone density issues, micronutrient intake. So I do think it's best to work with someone that has eyes on that diet. I'm a fan of microdosing. Those clinical titrations are for people that need it for medical reasons. I'm not using it for medical reasons. I won't go into, I don't know the specifications of this channel, so I won't go into specific dosing, but I use like a baby amount microdosed. I didn't need it anymore. And I think my number one piece of advice for anyone taking a GLP off label, like if you don't medically need it, control your rate of loss. That's the biggest thing. Do not lose more than 1% of your total body weight per week. If you just adjust your dosage based on that, because a lot of people aren't calorie tracking, and I can't control everybody in the world. I can't be like, count your calories and macros and micronutrients. Just control your rate of loss. That's the best thing to do. Keep your protein high. High is subjective. I don't care. Keep your protein high. Strength train. Not into the gym, not into public. Cool. Get some stretchy rubber bands. Do them in your home office. Strength train, any type of resistance training, high protein. Value your muscle. It is your most important asset as you age. But I do think they're abused, and I think there's better and smarter ways to utilize them. I think retatrutide's awesome. I wouldn't have ever touched the other GLPs. And it was a good experience for me because I got to play with the dosages, overdose myself, see what happens when you're overly suppressed. That was an important experience for me since I work with clients taking them.
Yeah, I had never taken them. I had trained more than 10 clients that were taking them. In the end, I felt that I got a pretty good system in getting people to do the right things. Like even, especially a lot of people that really wanted to lose the weight and they really wanted the appetite suppressant was like they just wanted that freedom of mind to not have the food noise for a while. That's
Mm-hmm.
something I can really relate to because I'm a person that generally has insane food noise. I mean, I was 265 pounds as a kid, so I at like 5'6" at the time. I was like 16 years old, so I'm used to being. I can
Mm-hmm.
eat a tremendous amount of food, and so like I would hear people talk about like, oh, the food noise. I just want that to stop, and I like that the higher doses, like when they were taking even 5 milligrams of tirzepatide at the time, they were like, I don't hear that voice in my head that's like eat all day, and it's like it's so freeing. But then they would be like, they're not getting their protein in because like, yeah, you want to eat something, you're not feeling great, you're on GLP once. I can like take a bite of a Snickers bar, which is always kind of enjoyable, or I could like wolf down this chicken breast rice, and that does not sound appetizing whatsoever. So I basically tried to create like a system for them where they would have small meals. I made sure they had like some supplements of protein that were tasty and easy to get down. um, and I did stuff like make sure they take fiber supplements to help, because I know it's going to be hard for you to get a lot of vegetables. I told them to get a lot of fruits, especially like tasty sweet ones, because it's a little bit easier. I did all
Hmm.
this without actually having ever tried it. And at some point, I wanted to really create a protocol, and I went to Dr. Dean St. Mart. He has a company called Supplement Needs. I'm like, I want to create this protocol. I want to use your company. I trust Dr. Dean very much. I know his supplements are top quality. I would like to use your supplements and work with you. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. He's like, so have you ever tried it? And I was like, no, but not for complaint. He's like, I think you should try it to see. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, that makes sense. You can't, you don't you practice what you preach. So I tried it. I said, I got a photo shoot anyway. Good opportunity to get ripped, and I'll try it out, see
Hmm.
how it works. And I was amazed. I mean, honestly,
Which one did you use?
I used trizepatide. I wanted to use retatrutide, but I couldn't find it. It's also just more difficult to get a hold of when I'm traveling. Well, I can
Mhm.
get like Mounjaro in London. I can get it in Monaco. I can get it in the States. It's kind of like I could just get it anywhere. While if I there's only one place to get it is America. Outside of that, it becomes much more of a pain. So I used trizepatide. I didn't have too many digestive issues, a little bit here and there, very manageable stuff, low dose. I mean, I was 2.5 milligrams. But it was the first time in my life I ever I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm not constantly thinking about food. And I was like, this drug is going to change a lot of lives. Like I could really tell from just myself. I mean, it was unbelievable.
I think so
Uh,
much of it is I that's a good thing that you tried it because you were finally able to experience it. And I was so anti GLP. It was a very good experience for me to use it. But I think it's so much of it is what you make of it and who's guiding you on it. Like for me, I have the appetite of a grown ass man. No 95-pound girl should be throwing down 3,300 calories a day, but that was when I was competing. And, a lot of people talk about how hunger hormones can be trained to some degree and we can literally stretch our stomachs. And it was an eye-opening experience for me, somebody that has a very good metabolism. I wish I could tell you I worked for it. I don't. It's genetic. I have a good metabolism. But for somebody that's not struggled with body composition but did bodybuild, I didn't realize I had a skewed relationship with food until I was on it. I'm so used to just eating my plate, eating my macros, getting my 5 ounces of this and my 6 ounces of that. It was very interesting to bring awareness to being full. And then I remember the first time I got indigestion, I'd overeaten a meal on it. And I told my husband, I said, I'm having a cardiovascular event. You need to take me to the ER. And he's like laughing. And I'm like, no, there's pain right here. I was like, it's kind of on the left. Like, I need to. I'd never had heartburn in my life.
well,
And it was it was a
yes,
first for me, but it brought awareness. And it's crazy because even after I finished it, I now eat smaller volume meals, which is my core looks better, but I eat more appropriate volumes for somebody my size. And I don't struggle with food noise, thankfully, but for someone like yourself and patients that really do have that issue, it's life changing to not always have that in the back of your mind. But then there's people like myself that will abuse it and they're like, well, I have food noise. And I'm like, no, you just want to eat. Like when you walk by a plate of cookies, you should want a plate of cookies. That's
mhm.
normal. The idea though is that you can look at those cookies and say, no, I have goals, or oh, I'll have one cookie instead of being like cookies and eating five.
Yeah,
That's the big difference. So I think it's a big balance of whether we have medical necessity, if we have some of those psychological aspects of it that we can really learn from while we're taking it. But so many people just take it haphazardly, and it can change your life for the better forever. Like it allows you to incorporate the habits that everybody preaches that are so difficult when you're actually applying them.
100%. And like I've gotten to single digit body fat before without the GLP ones, and I've done it with the GLP ones. And when I've done it without the GLP ones, I would swear I'm never doing it again by the end of it. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care that I have these abs. Like, nothing is changing
Not
in my
worth
life.
it.
It's not worth it. And then when I was with the gym ones, I was like, I'm cool with this. I could do this. I could keep doing this all day, no problem. And now I'm actually using it in reverse. I'm bulking up. And the problem I've had when I'm bulking is once I start going into that direction, it takes a lot for me to control, and then I'll normally gain a little too much fat, then have to mini
Mm.
cut back down. It just becomes this. I might going back and forth way too much, and it slowed my bulks down so much in the past. And I'm gonna actually use it opposite. So I'm just gonna kind of be slowly increasing my calories and using it to just control my appetite on the way up.
It's a fantastic tool in bodybuilding, not even necessarily in a prep scenario, but for reverse dieting. If you hear any bodybuilder, male, female, especially amateurs, it's not the prep that kills them. It's that reverse that gets them. So implementing them in a reverse diet has a lot of benefit, and I think that helps keep people on track both physically and mentally, because that's a hard time. I call it purgatory, essentially. Like, you reached your goal and now we're intentionally gaining body fat. But you got to control it. It's a hard time for a lot of competitors. And then microdosing it, even in a surplus, can really help with that insulin sensitivity, glucose management when carbs get a lot higher. There's a lot of argument to utilize it off label. I'm a fan of them. Well, I'm a fan of Retta. I can say that. I tolerate tirzepatide, hate semaglutide. I like all the off label benefits that come with these other GLPs.
Yeah, I have been tried semaglutide, but tirzepatide for me, I didn't have much of an issue. Speaking of which, I actually asked this question to Big Paul Barnett, and he had an interesting answer. I had thought, I potentially wanted to try the MK677 at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, oh, I was worried about it basically because of the hunger issues, the hunger side effects of it. And I was like, oh, maybe by taking GLP-1s alongside it, I can counterbalance that. His recommendation was not to take the MK677, basically because of one of the studies Scott Stevenson, another guest on the podcast, had talked about. Like, there was a study where you were varying results on people's GH, even with the different dosages. Like, the higher dosages group weren't exactly having higher results. The lower dosages group weren't sometimes were having higher. It was all mixed, and it was really hard to come to clue. He told me, he's like, if you want to do it, just take GH. Kind of his advice.
Hands down,
But
I'm in agreement.
yeah, you're in agreement, right? Can
Well,
you
and it doesn't
explain
even
that to
have to
me?
be growth hormones specifically. Like, we look at the draw of certain secretagogues or GHRPs as an example. I personally feel like the GHRPs specifically are going, and that for anyone that's not in the peptide world, growth hormone releasing peptides, they're usually stacked with a growth hormone releasing hormone. We do GHRPs with our GHRHs. The biggest difference in what we're talking about now versus like actual HGH is these are increasing your endogenous production. They have different, hopefully synergistic pathways that increase your body's own production of growth hormone, which therefore adequate estrogen, good liver health, you'll have good IGF conversion. Like, that's the ultimate goal. MK677 along with our GHRP2, 6, those are notable appetite stimulants. Like, when I wanted to be hungry, I took MK. When I needed those 3,000 calories and I'm like, no, I'm a little girl, that's how I got the food in. So to me, if you aren't looking for an appetite increase, but you want the therapeutic effects of the increase in growth hormone and maybe less water retention, less influence on blood pressure, less influence on fasting blood glucose levels, I would always opt for a GHRH, maybe with a more like a cleaner profile GHRP, like ipamorelin stacked with it, versus MK, unless you just straight up want the hunger and the water retention. I mean, I know some people don't mind it, but I'm lean enough to where I noticed the water retention, was not a fan. But always growth hormones typically going to be superior to all of these because you're not relying on your body's production. We don't have to rely on certain levels being low and then optimizing them with synergistic compounds. You can just take growth hormone. And it's silly to take something that increases your appetite and then you have to take something to decrease it to balance it out.
Yeah, I could you give me maybe a steel man against the growth hormone, because I'm I'm kind of been on the fence about this. And I'm on the fence about it. I don't really have a good reason why I'm on the fence about it. Maybe just I'm hype. I'm just a cautious guy generally. So I've been on the fence about it, and I was considering taking a peptide for some reason that mentally does not cause as much like hesitation as taking growth hormone. What would be if somebody was arguing against growth hormone? What would be the reasons behind not taking it and taking a peptide?
I mean, I like growth hormones. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask, but I would say a family history of cancer,
Yeah,
personal history of cancer. Everybody talks about it causing cancer. It does not. Causation is not an issue there, but when we are, increasing our growth hormone levels and IGF, obviously there's going to be a concern. Everybody thinks, well, muscle cell proliferation, but it's not isolated to our muscle tissues. Of course, we look at cell proliferation in general. This can help feed existing tumors. Even it can exacerbate issues pre-existing like gynecomastia as well. Some people are
mm,
just specifically like they're not good candidates from a medical standpoint. And for others, everybody talks about the anti-aging effects of it. Yeah, skin, hair, nails, that's like why I suck it down. But if we're talking like actual anti-aging, is there really a lot of argument to increase systemic IGF in an adult human that's not looking for anabolism and focused on hypertrophy? No, probably not. There's a lot of argument against that. And, Kurt Havens and I talked a lot about that as well. Like, it's not necessarily going to be practical application for every adult, like we're seeing touted in the bodybuilding community. I still love growth hormone, don't get me wrong, I take it. But
yeah,
I don't think it's for everyone. And for a lot of people, they're very sensitive to it. They note more water retention. Sourcing can be an issue, especially if you're not getting it prescribed and you don't have it with mannitol. Higher levels can not be tolerated very well. I know I do prefer like tesamorelin over growth hormone. Personally, that tends to be my favorite long-term reductions in visceral fat. It's the only GHRH that has FDA approval for therapeutic use in humans. But no, GH is not for everyone, even though I know everybody loves to push it. But I think there's a lot of confusion in the term anti-aging. I think a lot of people are confusing that with more longevity aspects, and those are
yeah,
very different things that we're looking at. I just want to look young, so I take a bunch of GHKCU.
yeah. Well, and when you're taking something like, let's say you're taking tesamorelin, um, can you give me a bit of the background of what's actually going on in your body? Like, how are you producing more of it? How are you producing more growth hormone from the testosterone? How does it actually work? Like, what's the science behind it?
So all GHRHs, some of them have different mechanisms of action against the GHRPs. This one in particular, and I might be wrong on this, I believe has a direct function on the pituitary. That might be wrong. It might be hypothalamus. Someone might be coming for me for that. Don't quote me on that one.
Yeah,
But basically, the biggest difference is that there's going to be limitations. That's why nobody wants you taking GHRHs and they prefer growth hormone. I can just give you however much growth hormone you can tolerate. I can manually adjust your IGF. I can keep your estrogen a little bit higher, give you growth hormone. There's going to be limitations with the GHRHs. Like somatostatin levels have to be lower for them to work. That's why they're stacked with a GHRP. Technically, Tessa's best with ipamorelin. And again, cleaner profile, less influence on like cortisol, prolactin, less of an appetite increase. I can't run it that way because I can't do fasted AM shots. Like I want coffee and sugar in the morning, so I just do my tests independently. But for me, it's a lower side effect profile, much less water retention, more notable reductions in visceral fat because that's its clinical application. We have to look at why it exists than growth hormone. And yes, growth hormone will produce more reductions in like subcutaneous fat, but when we look at long-term results, we keep the visceral fat off with tesamorelin. And I don't end up with like carpal tunnel, like feeling issues and achy joints, even on the clinical dosage. I don't. My waist tightens up, my nails grow too fast, it's uncomfortable, my hair looks better, my skin's beautiful, I sleep like a baby. So to me, especially as a more petite female that's not trying to leverage it for anabolism, I will always choose Tessa, which is not
okay,
a
that's very
popular
interesting.
opinion among my colleagues because they all just want me on 2 IUs of growth. But let me tell you, 2 IUs, 2 to 3 IUs of GH when we look at IGF outcome is very similar to clinical dosages of Tessa and blood work.
That's very interesting. I'm gonna after we're done with the podcast, I'm gonna dig into this a little more because
It's
that's
my
very
favorite.
interesting.
I utilize it all the time. And I actually took my first time, I wasn't even in a calorie deficit, but I took like, obviously, I do my check in photos. I'm the mirror person. And
Mm.
holy cow. I remember reaching back and I was because I was I was heavier. I was like, this was when I was competing and I was like in a building phase. And I remember reaching behind and like, where did that fat go?
Yeah.
It's all gone. And and I got great results and I was not in a deficit.
Oh, that's amazing. That's very amazing. So I'm curious about this. When I've been having some females come to me recently asking me about testosterone replacement therapy. What my opinion on this. I've seen some results with some female clients that are quite fantastic. I really rely even heavier on the doctors. I make sure because I know that a lot of times,
It's like the
they
worst
don't
thing
want
you
to be
could do. You
taking.
should take control over it.
Exactly. I get worried. I would try to rely on the experts as much as possible. I hope they're the experts at least.
So that's
And
the issue with female TRT is who do you trust as the expert? Because let me tell you, it's not an FDA approved treatment in females, so your endocrinologists aren't
yeah,
doing it.
no,
You are the experts. Is it gynecologists? No, they throw a pellet in everybody. Is it going to be the primary
yeah.
care physician? Have they gone above and beyond and got extra certifications and studied endocrinology and female hormones and virilization potential? No. What about the med spa that wants to overdose you so you have lots of sex? Like, who is the expert in this? That's the issue with
Well, that's
TRT and
that's been
women.
my issues. I feel like a lot of times the dosages are trying to get females. I'm worried about the effects of like making the females look slightly more masculine, and that's maybe not if that's not the effects that they're desiring, the outcome they're desiring. I really warn heavily against it. Like if that, especially when I know that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for an increase in sex drive potentially, maybe a little more muscularity and a little more drive for training, which I think can be done, but I think it's too a lot of times they're a little too loose with the pen when it comes to prescribing the dosages. I want to hear kind of what your thoughts are on this and kind of how you take about going with clients, with female clients who don't want those masculine effects to be coming on. Because obviously, if that is what you're looking for, it's completely different.
I This has become my new hyperfixation topic. I hyperfixate on things. Right now I eat a lot of chocolate covered raspberries and I talk about overdosing on TRT in females. Those are my two hyperfixations right now. So do you have a lot of females on TRT or that are getting into TRT right now?
I have one client that is on and one client that is considering to get on.
If you want a cheat sheet, I'm shamelessly self promoting, but on my Patreon, I have free virilization content. And for any women watching or men that are trying to give your wives tests to increase their sex drive, please don't do that. Virilization is the masculinizing effects as a result of taking
Yeah.
these androgens. But what we're seeing is an epidemic of overdosing females. And I don't want to ever say like, well, don't do this. It's going to viralize you because I also work with a lot of trans athletes, but I also feel like that's what's given me the opportunity to really kind of see what thresholds we start to see side effects outside of the clinical data that shows this. But a lot of women, that's not their goal. If it is their goal, awesome, run it. We get a lot more flexibility if you do want to masculinize or if you already are.
Yeah.
Most women do want to preserve their femininity. And I think a lot of the issues is they think it's going to be reversible. So they're willing to take further risks. It's just like how I differentiated earlier for males. Testosterone replacement therapy. Women don't run tests. We're not cycling tests. We're going to cycle something. It's going to be something very low androgenic, not something that aromatizes, converts to DHT. It's a one-to-one androgenic anabolic. That's not what we're going to leverage. We're going to leverage something like oxandrolone. So it is intended as replacement therapy. And what I'm seeing is more and more providers are telling women they're testosterone deficient when they are perfectly healthy, normal, non androgen dominant women. Or they're suboptimal. Well, let me tell you, standard physiological ranges for female tests usually around 10 to 30 picograms or nanograms per deciliter. That's about it. You might see some outliers up to 40. That's awesome. If you're over 40, that's almost guaranteed that you're going to have PCOS. And there are women that are unfortunately very deficient. And I'm all about TRT. Like, girl, if you want to get on test to keep your levels a little bit higher for performance, and especially when our sex drives go down and our spouses are on TRT, leverage it. It's way better than PT 141, but there are going to be limitations. We can't leverage it the same way. When you start going over 100 nanograms per deciliter, my preferred range is around 75, that's when virilization risk picks up. It's going to happen at 150. We've got clinical data to show this. It might be tolerable. It might be like an extra chin hair. Like menopause, you already got some weird chin hair. You probably don't even notice. Maybe shave your legs a bit faster. Maybe slight breast atrophy. A little bit of clitoral enlargement, not growth, but maybe enough to where it's a little more sensitive. A lot of it's tolerable. But then we have to look at our free testosterone and SHBG levels as well. And I'm all about leveraging our total test as long as it's not over 100. Some women can tolerate 150. That's my personal threshold. This is subjective, my personal threshold. But free test, in my opinion, unless you are open to masculinizing, should never be out of range in women. That's where we have the highest DHT conversion. That's where we start seeing irreversible androgenic alopecia, clitoral growth, facial hair, vocal cord changes that are also irreversible. You won't even be able to have a dog mom voice. Like, you can't get your voice high. This can even happen on DHEA in those that are androgen sensitive. These are permanent, life altering effects. And you can want to have a lot of sex and have good muscle at 75 nanograms per deciliter and not suffer the side effects. When we see these high levels, 250, 300, I've seen women 1500 overdosed. We are basically not only recreating a male hormone environment, starting your transition process, but you're basically recreating a PCOS environment. Menstrual cycles are going to get disrupted. You're going to deal with the virilizing effects. It's been linked to reduced insulin sensitivity, high free test. Like, that's why would you give yourself PCOS?
Yeah,
It's an
yeah,
epidemic, but when you give a woman androgens, especially if she doesn't feel good, it's a band-aid treatment. You're going to want to have sex with everything and you're going to be super strong and you will have that initial muscle development. It's great, but it's a band-aid fix and there's long-term consequences. I tell women it's great until it's not. And I've done so many podcasts with women that have come out and said, like, hey, I ran my levels higher, my provider recommended it, it's the best I ever felt. And then 2 years later I look back and I'm like, what happened to my face? It's more masculine. I didn't realize my vocal cords were changing. It's irreversible. And they're open about it. And unfortunately, women that have viralized don't talk about their story a lot. You only hear the good parts the first year they're on TRT because the internet's mean. Nobody wants to be
yeah,
called a man on the internet. I would know.
yeah,
It's not a
yeah.
place that you want to share your story.
Oh, 100%. And I think the fact that it's irreversible is something that isn't talked about enough because there's a, I mean, this could be, with men and women when, especially when you're taking performance enhancing drugs, it's something to consider. But especially, I think a lot of women would, if they knew that was an irreversible, potentially irreversible situation, they would really consider what they're taking. They would reconsider it and maybe be much more careful and much more run on the safe side. Because I think a lot of people think that they're just going to be like, okay, once I get off, all this is going to go away. And then it's
Exactly.
so disappointing when it's not.
And some of that's on the provider. So for any of your viewers listening, if your wife's considering it, if you are considering it, your provider is probably not going to talk to you about virilization prevention. And this is what kills me is it's preventable. Like, you could actually abuse it. You could probably get away with higher levels if you know what to look out for. The signs of throat clearing and voice breaking, and noticing the frequency of shaving, using a vocal pitch monitor app. Like, that's what kills me is it's preventable, but nobody's having those conversations. And they're like, oh, it's seasonal allergies, or they're not documenting certain biofeedback, so they're not aware it's happening at all. And that's, a lot of women aren't even aware that it's a potential side effect. Most women on TRT, I have found, don't understand that it's suppressing their natural production, and a lot of them are offered TRT before we check DHEA sulfate. Like, we don't have testicles. So much of our testosterone comes from conversion in peripheral tissues. Like, y'all, we don't have testicles. Like, it's cool how much we can increase it naturally. Are we looking at omegas and like vitamin D deficiencies? Are we strength training? What's your protein intake look like? Like, we can increase our test naturally a whole lot easier than y'all can. But a lot of doctors, you don't, a clinic's not going to make money off of holistic remedies that improve your blood work. They make money selling you testosterone. And holistically, your sex drive isn't going to go through the roof. It usually doesn't. Maybe if you handle aggressive DHEA well. And for anyone listening, I am viralized. My voice cracks when I speak really loud because of DHEA. 25 milligrams of DHEA
Okay.
viralized me, and those cracks are irreversible. Luckily, my voice pitch did not drop. I already have a little bit of a deeper voice, but I don't have a dog mom voice. Like, I can't holler for my kids when they're outside. I can't scream Pink Pony Club at the top of my lungs when I'm in my car. That has impacted my quality of life. I can't talk in a high pitched voice to my dogs. That's terrible. Who doesn't have
Hmm.
a dog mom voice? And like, those are the things that you might, a couple cracks, it's not a big deal until you see it in execution, and it really does reduce your quality of life because it's permanent.
Yeah. And that's from DHEA.
I'm super androgen sensitive. I couldn't do 1 milligram of TRT. My levels shot through the roof. That's why I found I had like a clotting issue as well. Like, I'm just not a candidate. That's why I play with peptides, because I can't do like any of the more interesting or aggressive hormonal stuff that I would like to do, because my natural test levels are 8 nanograms per deciliter.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I did not say so. I take a DHEA 25 milligrams a day supplementation recently, and I got on it for mood stabilization,
How do you
essentially.
like it?
It's so early, I can't really tell if I'm like feeling a placebo effect from it. Like, I feel kind of like a bit, I kind of feel a bit more, which is a bit strange to say. Like, I felt for a little bit, and it don't know again if this has anything to do with the testosterone or just life. I just kind of felt the sense of kind of like numbness across the board. Like, I've just been busy working, and it just was like
Hmm.
things were just going and moving, and I was just chasing things, but wasn't really feeling too much. And after taking it, now it's been about like 4 weeks of taking it. I started getting like, I got sad one day, and then I got happy another day. I was like, oh, haven't really felt these things for a while. Like, it was like a bit of a shock. Now I have
So for
no
you,
idea
it's
if it's just,
a positive, but for a lot of people, those
yeah.
mood changes can be negative, and especially in women, it's more pronounced. We see, based on your body's preferred metabolic pathways, we might see increases in estradiol, increases in test. Very fortunate it increases my test at low doses. I'm very good on a very low dose, but I really like it. I feel, our levels are typically declining in our 20s. I feel like it helps reduce brain fog for a lot of people. And for men, erection quality tends to improve. It can help enhance libido a little bit. I'm a fan of DHA supplementation, especially, and I hate to use that word optimal. It's so cliche, but if you are in like suboptimal ranges with DHA, I do like supplementation, or at the very least exploring maybe pregnenolone.
Yeah, I again, I tried it because another concierge doctor had offered another one of my clients, told him that he thinks he should take it due to like because of mood, and that was basically the reasoning of it. His When he was on testosterone, he was having everyone around him was complaining basically, like, what's going on with you? Like, 1 minute you're okay, the next minute you're all like angry, and when you get angry, it's so much angrier than what you were before. And he had recommended that, and I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm feeling bad. I don't know what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling something, and so I might I might try this.
So you get all the
It's
tips from your clients' doctors. Then you get the inside information, and that's where you get your trial and error stuff.
And the truth is that I deal with all the doctors, so basically they don't want to deal with the doctors. They don't understand what the doctors are talking about. They don't care to understand, so they just send me to go deal with them. So I end up being like, I one have to then research and then try to understand what these doctors are talking about enough to help them make decisions based on like what they're, they might even have two, three doctors that they're speaking to. So I'll have to like
Bridge
walk
all the
through
things.
to bridge everything together, yeah, and be like, listen, take it for a grain of salt. For me, based on these people that I've spoken to, this seems to be at least the more logical choice. And he already gave me more information. Or he didn't just brush me off like, like, just do what I tell you and trust
Hmm.
me, And yeah, but that's where I get a lot of my, outside of reading for myself, that's why I get a lot of like my first clip. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you doing that? Okay, that makes sense. Because I'm brand new to the performance enhancing world. generally. So
I
I
still
did
tell
got
people I'm
into it
in
late.
my infancy in this world and it's ever growing, new information, new data. And of course, because we have the extremists like in the bodybuilding realm and now all these like self proclaimed biohackers, like we're getting more anecdotal feedback than we ever have. It's becoming more mainstream than we've ever seen.
100%. To the point that I know at least 10 people that are taking some, like 10 people that in my life, like not work life, like cousins, brothers, friends, kids I grew up
Hmm.
in school with. It, like they're like, oh, I'm on testosterone. I'm on a GLP-1. I'm on this peptide. Like everybody is on depending on what they can get their hands on and what's available and people are on stuff just regularly casually everyone's talking about it like they're at the
Yeah.
bar like oh yeah I'm optimizing this I'm on Nepo-Morlin I'm on this I'm like wow how did that happen when did this all
I always say like I hashtag everything normalize anabolic steroids because I'm like everybody else is injecting stuff now. When are we going to quit demonizing the steroids?
exactly that'd be fun. So I actually have one more place I wanted to go with you before I let you go. When we're talking about testosterone and cholesterol, one thing I've realized with me and with a bunch of my clients, if I am not very careful while I'm on testosterone, my LDL will start like creeping up
Hmm.
blood test to blood test. HDL will go lower and lower. I that was the first time in my life I ever had any negative change. Even when I was fat, I really didn't have high LDL. My LDL was pretty solid all around. But then once I got into testosterone, I saw the difference.
Yeah.
I try to control it with like supplementation, with like one diet, where I try to stay generally leaner than I used to stay. I don't let myself get as far out. I have some more control over my saturated fat intake. I take fiber supplementation just because I'm on the road. I eat on the road. I live at a hotel, so my food choices aren't always the easiest. So I get fiber supplementation. I take omega threes. But if I ever, for whatever reason, am not as disciplined on that, I see like an increase. Do you see that? Is there any way that you and you help yourself, or maybe I mean, sorry, your clients that you help control their cholesterol? Is that something that you're overly worried about, or
I'm overly worried about everything. So, um,
yeah,
it's it's part of taking the compound. We do see those increases in LDL, especially reductions in HDL. And as a male, we look at high density lipoprotein synthesis. What do we need? A healthy liver, decent estrogen. Well, you're already at a disadvantage compared to like your female counterparts for HDL synthesis. And then what do? You take testosterone on top of it. It's exacerbating the issues. I think you are already doing the right thing. You're managing your diet as best you can with a lot of my clients. In order to control that LDL, we opt for leaner protein sources, which isn't always fun. Like we know the superior hamburgers in 85/15. But I don't care if it tastes
yeah,
better. I'm putting you on a 97.3, man. Like that's what we're doing. But a lot of the things that we do to help manage some of our other lipids, especially like our low density lipoprotein, are putting us at a disadvantage for our HDL. Like, high fat meats, high fat dairy. We have to look at our omega sources. Your body needs omegas, but doesn't synthesize them. So we've got to get omega. So you're already doing that omega supplementation, which is really going to help support your HDL. Like I like aggressive omegas. My biggest thing is if you love someone, if you have someone in your life that you love, put them on omega 3s. That's what I say to everybody. So you're already doing that. So yes, diet's going to be a big part of that. Even steady state cardio. I think our list goal is like 150 minutes per week is shown to improve HDL. But honestly, omegas are big. Implementing plant based fats are really good for your lipids. And citrus bergamot is fantastic for LDL reductions, more so than many pharmaceuticals that we see now. We see a lot of people using ezetimibe as like monotherapy to help control LDL, but honestly, consistency with omegas and citrus bergamot, I think you get the same results. Even guys running orals, I don't think we always need pharmaceutical interference. Like we know what we're doing to their bodies. It's more corrective work after and management during. But citrus bergamot's huge. That and omegas, lipid game changers.
That's great. Actually, I'm not taking citrus bergamot. That's something I might consider
More
jumping in because
tolerable for most people versus berberine. I love it as a glucose disposal agent. It's good for your lipids, but berberine is not always well tolerated. And if you don't like if it gives you gas when you first take it, like your body's not going to adapt. You either handle it or you don't. And then nobody wants to hang out with you if you don't handle berberine well. Like it's not well tolerated. Citrus bergamot is.
okay, okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Yeah, nobody needs that around my life. I'm in airplanes too much. That'd be terrible. Terrible for me. Well, listen, Coach DJ, I know Vanilla Face. I love that, by the way. But I want to thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with me. I want to apologize. I got in a little bit of a fender bender and I got stuck on the road and trying to get here for the
I couldn't
podcast.
get
And
my
we
camera to
jumped
work,
on.
so
We were a mess and we figured it out together. I really want to appreciate you. I'm gonna keep following you. I'm gonna put your links in the YouTube video and on Instagram. And I really want to thank you for here and keep teaching us. And I'm gonna keep following and learning along.
thank you so much for having me.
And guys, that's a pod.
All right.